All right, let's dive into a real scientific detective story. We're on the hunt for a fundamental secret, a single powerful idea that connects literally everything that's alive. I'm talking about you, me, a giant redwood tree, even the tiniest little bacterium. So, what's the big secret? What's the one thing that every single living thing on this planet shares? It's not as obvious as you might think. It actually took centuries of some really brilliant detective work to finally crack the code. And our story starts where a lot of great mysteries do, with a single kind of accidental observation. The very first clue popped up way back in the 17th century, thanks to a scientist who was just, well, looking a little closer at the world around him. Just think about that for a second. Imagine being the first person ever to see this. The way he describes it, a honeycomb with a great many little boxes. I mean, that's not some dry scientific report, right? That's the sound of someone discovering a whole new world, one that was hidden right under our noses the whole time. Now, here's the interesting part. What Robert Hooke was looking at, it wasn't actually living cells. He was peering at a super thin slice of cork, which is basically just dead plant tissue. So what he saw were the empty little walls left behind. But, and this is the crucial thing, by giving them that name, cells, he basically left the first breadcrumb on a trail that other scientists would follow for hundreds of years. So for almost 200 years, that little clue just sat there. It was a curiosity, but not much more. And then, bam, we jump to the 19th century. Suddenly, you've got two different scientists looking at completely different things, and they stumble onto a connection that is going to change biology forever. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this scientific mystery. We've got Hooke in 1665, who first names the cell. Next up, 1838, that's when Schleiden and Schwann proposed the very first version of cell theory. And finally, 1885, when a guy named Virchow comes in and really completes the puzzle. We've just covered Hooke, so let's jump ahead to 1838 and meet our next two key players.
Okay, this is one of those amazing aha moments in science. On one hand, you've got Matthias Schleiden, a botanist, who's looking at plant after plant and realizes, hey, all plants are made of cells. At the exact same time, you have Theodor Schwann, a zoologist, who's figuring out the very same thing is true for animals. Now, you gotta remember, back then, plants and animals were seen as completely separate worlds. So for them to say, wait a minute, despite the differences, the cell is the fundamental building block for both, that was absolutely revolutionary. It brought the entire living world under one single beautiful idea.
So, Schleiden and Schwann had built this incredible foundation. All living things are made of cells. Awesome. But there was this one huge, gaping hole in their theory. A question they just could not answer. Okay, great, everything's made of cells, but where do new cells come from? And then, the final piece of the puzzle clicks into place, and it comes in this beautifully simple Latin phrase, omnis cellula e cellula. All cells come from cells. That's it. This profound idea came from a German scientist named Rudolf Virchow, and it changed everything. And just like that, the mystery was solved. Cells don't just magically appear out of thin air. No, Virchow saw it happen again and again under his microscope. A new cell is always born from a parent cell that divides. And this idea? It completely reshaped our understanding of, well, everything, from how we heal to how diseases spread. With that single observation, the case was pretty much closed. All right, we've gathered all the clues. We have Hooke's little boxes, we have Schleiden and Schwann connecting plants and animals, and we have Virchow's final critical piece. So now we can finally lay out the solution to our mystery. These are, essentially, the rules of life.
And it's called cell theory, but don't let that word fool you. In science, theory doesn't mean it's just a guess. Oh no, it means it's one of the most tested, most validated ideas we have. This is the bedrock of modern biology. It's the framework that lets us understand everything from genetics to disease. It's huge.
So what does it all boil down to? Just three main ideas. Number one, the cell is the fundamental unit of life. It's the basic Lego brick for all living things. Number two, every living thing is made up of one or more of these cells. Simple enough. And number three, cells only come from other pre-existing cells. That's it. Simple, elegant, and it seems to explain the entire living world. Well, almost. Because, that's the beautiful thing about science. Just when you think you've got it all wrapped up in a neat little bow, nature throws a curveball.
the story doesn't just end here with a tidy set of rules. No way. The mystery actually gets even deeper when we start looking at the things that, well, break the rules.
And honestly, this is where things get really, really interesting. So we've got this powerful, beautiful theory, but what happens when we find stuff that just doesn't quite fit? Let's take a look at a few of these rule breakers, because they show us that the picture of life is way more complex and way more fascinating than we thought.
This is where that clean, neat definition of life starts to get fuzzy. I mean, take viruses. They have no cells at all. They're basically just little packets of genetic code that are totally inert until they hijack a living cell. So, are they alive? What about parts of our own bodies? The red blood cells flowing through your veins right now. They ditch their nucleus as they mature, which means they can't divide. Are they really alive in the strictest sense? And it gets weirder. There are some fungi that are basically one giant cell with thousands of nuclei floating around, which completely blows up our idea of what a single organism even is. Now, these exceptions don't throw cell theory out the window, not at all. But what they do is force us to keep asking questions and to refine what we really mean when we say something is alive.
And that leads us to the final, really mind-bending question, especially when you think about viruses. This isn't just for a trivia night. This gets to the very core of what life even is. If being made of cells is the #1 rule of life, then what in the world is a virus? It's a puzzle that scientists are still fiercely debating today. And it just goes to show you that even after centuries of incredible discoveries, the amazing story of the cell is still being written.